Hello, and welcome to this session on using Blender for video editing. We are going to talk about 2D stabilization, a process you can use to remove unwanted motion from your video footage. And this set of videos I have up on the left will help explain what I'm talking about. The video on the far left, that's the original recording done on a camera that is not in a fixed position, it's moving around. And in addition to that, the subject is also moving around. So that's the original footage. The one in the middle, we are applying a regular stabilization effect, focusing on the background and fixing that in place so that it appears that the camera itself was in a fixed position on a tripod or something. And then as a bonus, the video on the right is showing stabilization on something that is not actually stable. In this case, the mask is the thing that does not move in the resulting video. We are going to talk about how you can do that. The overall process will be as follows. Identify features, track, and then enable 2D stabilization using those tracking markers that you've created. And then finally, you can make use of your stabilized footage. Now, motion tracking is a topic all on its own, and I have covered it in prior videos. So if that's something that you are new to, then please do check out those videos and then come back here when you're ready. Okay, so let's get started. There are actually two levels of 2D stabilization. And the first is to be able to stabilize based off of location of some features. And, I'm going to pull up my pad here. I've got some notes. When it comes to location, what you want to do is pick features that are close to and centered around the most important subject in the footage. So let's take a look at this video real quick. So I'll let it play. And you'll see that this is footage I took while I was on a ferry. I was just about to dock. And it's definitely uneven. It's moving because the boat's going up and down. So I have made the decision that what I want the focus to be is this blue box right over here. Okay, so that is going to be the subject. And I know from previous testing that I will be fine to set up a couple of tracking markers on this side of the box. So I'm going to set one over here and then one over here. Now what I'll do for the first one, okay, I'll just jump about to the middle of my footage here. And for these tracking markers, I'll just take the defaults. So I'll set up the first one here. It looks like there's some kind of shadow happening there. Okay. Now I'm going to go into the track and I'll name this blue box right. Okay. Just so I have a name for it. And I'll go ahead and do track forwards and then track backwards just to show that process. Okay. That seemed to go quite okay. At the end point here, it's still pretty much where we started, looking fine. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and hit this button over here to track backwards. Okay, that looks fine over here. Checking the preview, looks good. All right, so we got the first one done. So for the remaining tracking markers, I'm just going to track forwards from frame 1. For that first one, I was going forwards and then backwards just to demonstrate that technique. But I've already done this before in my preparation. So I know these features that I'm selecting will track fine. So I'll go ahead and jump to frame 1 over here. I'll zoom in a little bit and I will create a second tracking marker here. I'll name it again like BB blue box and left. Okay, and I'll just go ahead and track. And it is done. So looking there, we can see it does look fine all throughout. So we have a couple of tracking markers set up. Let's get the 2D stabilization started. Before I do that, you know what? I'm just going to push this off to the side because we don't really need this. And I will turn your attention now over to the right side. Over here, there's this little tab here, stabilization. That's where we want to go. And the first thing we do is check this box, 2D stabilization. And there we have it. We have 2D stabilization enabled, but still not set up yet. The next step is to just go ahead and add the tracks that we created that will handle stabilizing on location. So over here, I'll press the letter A to select everything, and then come back over here and click on this plus sign to add them both. So we have our tracking markers added, but we still need to enable the display of stabilization to actually see anything inside of the movie clip editor. So to do that, we can go over here to clip display, click on that, and then click on this checkbox, show stable. So click on that, and now you could see that this kind of jumped a little bit because one thing that we did not change is up here, anchor frame 1. That's the reference frame. That's where things should be for the rest of the clip. So let me take that off the display. You see how it kind of jumped, and I'll put it back on. So this is exactly where these tracking markers were at frame 1. Let's prove it. I'll just click over here to jump back to the beginning, and there it is. And now if I zoom out a little bit, actually I'll zoom out all the way, you'll see, and let's pay attention to this, we have this dotted line all across that represents the entire footage, our 1920 by 1080 pixels worth of content. And now I'll just hit the play button, and you'll see as we play through, you're going to see black all around because what's happening is Blender is now taking the 2D stabilization into effect. We are fixing the video now based off of these points. So it is shifting our content around so that our tracking markers are always in that exact position within our overall canvas, if you want to call it that. And that's pretty much how you do the basic stabilization. There are other elements here that we can play with. So for example, AutoScale. Of course, our final footage, we probably don't want these different gaps here, because if we were to bring this into the video sequence editor, that will just be transparent. You'll be able to see the underlying layers, the underlying channels. So what you would want to do is adjust the scale so that you don't have any gaps. So you can see if I just click and drag on this, we can easily grow the size of it. And this is obviously more than we need at this point. But if I were to do that and have total manual control, which I could certainly do, then I'd have to be paying attention and making sure that that number is always right and I never get any black spots. Instead of manually setting the expected scale, we can just turn this on, AutoScale. And what Blender will do is it'll look at all of our settings and set one scale value that will give us a perfect fill for the content. We won't have any gaps, and it is just the right size to be able to account for all of the motion that we are now stabilizing on. Okay? Now, there's a few other things here that we might as well talk about before we go into the next level of stabilization. So we've already talked about auto-scaling. Targets, target X and Y. That's if you want to shift things around, because again, so this area here where we actually see our content, that's what will show up in the video sequence editor. And this dotted rectangle here shows all of the available content that we have to work with. If we wanted to have the blue box always dead center, well, we can make that happen by adjusting target X and target Y. One thing we could try to do is find the frame where it was more or less right in the center and then adjust for anchor frame. But instead of doing that, let's for now turn off AutoScale. Just set that back to 1, so that's back to the default. And then just move this around. Just click and drag to adjust so that it's roughly in the center. Okay, that's about horizontal and vertical center right there. And then we can turn auto-scaling back on. And there we go. And now if I play this, then now it is always right in the center, right where I wanted it. And using AutoScale, Blender has adjusted the scaling so that we're always getting a full filled frame. What we can also do is animate. You can animate this property. although auto scaling might go a little funky when we do that. So let me just turn off auto scale for now. I'll leave expected scale as is, but to demonstrate, let's say that, okay, by the end of it, we'll be at that point. I'll just set a keyframe there and then jump back to the beginning. And I'll say, let's say we wanted it like over here, to try to maybe reintroduce the original motion. Because if you recall from when we first started looking at this, it was kind of going in this direction. So if I do that and I hit play, then you'll see that, okay, yes, over time, it is kind of coming back to center. So we're reintroducing some motion back by making use of target X and target Y if I wanted to. I'm not sure how well auto scale will actually play here, so let me just turn that on and see, because in my earlier testing, it was doing things a little bit weird. I guess maybe once we turn on the next level of 2D stabilization, which is for rotation and scale. And before we talk about the next level of stabilization, let's go through the rest of these. Expected rotation, this allows you to set the rotation. So if I wanted it a little bit sideways, I can do that. I can adjust it. And you can see we're actually growing because I still have auto scale turned on. So it was adjusting the scale for me so that the frame would always be filled. So you can do that. And then influence. Influence is an interesting one. It's where you can control how much stabilization is actually going to happen. I'll probably show you that in my next video file. The original motion and stabilization is a little bit more subtle here compared to the video I showed at the top of this video. So when we open up that one, I'll show you this location influence and you'll get what I mean. As for this last one, Interpolate, I always keep it at the defaults. It says it's for use for sub-pixel shifts and rotations due to stabilization. By linear is the default. I think by cubic would give you better quality, but then would take more time to process. Let's now talk about the next kind of stabilization we can apply, which is for rotation or scale. Before we do that, I'm going to refer back to my notes. So when it comes to rotation and scale, we can use the same tracks, but usually it is best to use tracking points with large distance from the image center and symmetrically on both sides to capture the angular movements more precisely. That's what I wrote down when I started researching for this. My takeaway from that is that we're basically going to try and pick things on either side of the center. So let's go ahead and do that. To do it properly, I'm going to turn off auto scale and I'll set expected scale back to the original value, which is 1. I tried pressing backspace, that didn't work. And you know what? I'm going to get rid of the keyframes here. Get that back to original values. Okay, apparently it's not 0 and 0. Actually, sorry. let me turn off the show stabilize. There we go. That probably would have been an easier thing to do. Okay, so I'm just going to scrub through, but I'll point out right now the two things that I will select. So on the far left side, I'm going to pick this thing, which looks like lighting off of that building. And on the right side, I'm going to pick this red shipping container, one of these corners here. They are pretty much on equal opposite sides, and I've done it before. It looks pretty good. If I scrub through, you can see that, yeah, they're always going to be there. And the one thing as I scrub through, maybe you can see right here, this is where right around the middle, you can see it, there's very much like some tilting happening. And that's what we're going to deal with. We're going to get rid of that. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to jump to frame 1. And I will zoom in on this. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, let me just do it this way instead. Okay, and I will left click right here. Oops, I'm going to change this back to track so I can name this, and I'll just call this left light. And you know what? Let's track these two things at the same time, just to save us some time. So I've got that one. I'm going to create this one now. Control left click. Let me just shift that over with my arrow keys. Okay. Call this right red box. Okay, and have them both selected. All right, and I will track them now. And it's done. So if we just scrub through again, we can see, yep, they're tracked. Okay, so before I actually add them into the stabilization mix, let's turn on stabilization again, the view of it, show stable, and then go back into the stabilization section. Okay, these things are all back to their original values. Good. And let's turn on auto scaling. And I just want to play this so we can see exactly what it looks like right now. We'll know what to look for after we apply stabilization. So back to the start of it, I'll hit play. And again, so you can see this is our stabilization here. These things are not moving. I'm not touching the mouse right now. And you can see for sure, like the buildings in the background, you can see they're tilting side to side. At least that's what it appears to be happening. So let's make use of these additional trackers that we've created for handling that. So what we do is we click over here to enable rotation. By doing that, it also enables scale, but honestly, I haven't worked with scale before. I'd imagine it'll do something similar. By clicking on rotation, so it opened that up, and also this section over here where we can add in these tracking markers that are still selected right now. So I'll just click the plus button. There we go, our left light and our right red box. And that should be it. So let's go ahead and hit the play button one more time and see how this looks. We should now see no tilting at all of the buildings. And this boat over here, it should look very nice and flat, like we weren't actually on a boat. And I think that is pretty much what we delivered on. All right, so we've covered the basics of 2D stabilization, except for how influence might look. Before I show you that, which would mean switching over to a different Blender project, let's just quickly see how we would make use of this inside of the video sequence editor. So to do that, I'm going to jump back over to the video editing workspace. You can see here was the original footage with all of the motion in it. Jump to the beginning. I will add a clip, and it's this clip, which initially, if I just scrub through, will actually look the same because it doesn't come by default with 2D stabilization enabled. To enable that, go over here into the settings, expand out movie clip, and just click this checkbox, 2D stabilized clip. And then as soon as I did that, you can see it did the zooming because I had that auto zoom on. And now it will play and it'll look just like how it looks back in the motion tracking workspace when we were working on it. So that's how you can bring it in. And you can also bring this into the compositor if you need to do that. So having seen that, let's now go over into another Blender file. Okay, I'm not going to save that. I'm going to open up this one. This is the video where if I was doing what I had the background tracked. So if I go over here and I turn off stable, show stable, and I just play through and you pay attention to up here, I'll zoom it in a bit, hit the play button. Oh my goodness. I have sound on that. Okay, can I mute the sound? Let's just turn that down. Okay, great. Let's try that again. All right, so yep, you can see it's going all around. Fortunately, I was able to get it for that entire set of frames there. Having that tracked, so then when we go here and we turn on show stable, that's what it looks like. So that is fixed in place. It doesn't move at all in our final product. So it does, based off of this, it does look like, oh, let me turn on auto scaling too. It does look like we're recording from a fixed camera, mostly. There still looks like a little bit of rotation happening, but generally speaking, it looks a lot more stable and the person is bouncing all around. The other thing that I had shown at the beginning was when we, instead of tracking something that doesn't move, we track something that definitely does move. So in this case, you can see it's the eye holes over here, and you can see by the paths that, yeah, it is going all around. And as we play that, yeah, we can see for sure it's always right here in the center, and just plain stays right there. So now let's talk about the influence. So again, what I had said before was with influence, you can control how much of the stabilization is happening. What I find interesting is to take something that is initially unstable and then bring it into a fully stable state. Let's see here. What do we got? We've got this. I've got auto-scaling on. Let's do this. Let's start by taking this all the way down to 0, the initial state of not being stabilized at all. And then maybe by this point over here, we bring it up to full stabilization. So then that means everything from this point on is fully stabilized. So if we hit the play, it starts off not stable at all. And then over time, then you can see we're fixed with that location stabilization that we've applied. So that's kind of neat. And if you want to make this look even more like Pennywise from the It movie, that's actually what this is supposed to be like, then you would just add a bit of a red tint, maybe throw on some more clown outfits or something. Anyway, so that's that. That is how you can do 2D stabilization inside of Blender. I hope you liked that. I hope you got something out of it. If you did, please do click the thumbs up and consider subscribing to get more content whenever it does come. Thanks, and have a nice day.